YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. 9 articles in this episode for you. The URLs are in the description of the video for your convenience. But before we get started, I would like to say something here. Apparently, there has been a problem with my audio for the last couple of days. I'm not so sure that it's my computer. I'm wondering if it might have something to do with censorship. So instead of calling my political episodes, or political news, I'm going to call it Capital. And we'll see if that makes any difference with the audio on these. If you notice that there is garbled audio in these, please be sure and drop me a line. Let me know about it. Time to listen to them all the way through. I'll do, hit and skips across them to see if I catch anything on them. And I know there is problems, and then sometimes too long for me to redo the whole thing. Like the one yesterday was 1 3/4, so time to redo all that for you. By this, we're going to see. If not, I may have to, get my computer checked out and see if it is an issue on my end. It's kind of odd that shows go through with no problem, and then all of a sudden I get to a political one and there's issues. So, I wonder. So we're going to try this and we're going to see what happens. The first article I have in this episode is off of Western Journalism, and it says, "To grill Comey like any other witness." And there's, you want to pull it up to see that. The House Intelligence Committee gears up for its investigation into 2016 presidential election. Gowdy, Republican of South Carolina, Director James Comey will not receive special treatment. Interesting and rich history with Director Comey. He has a job. I'm probably biased toward the FBI based on my background, Gowdy said on Fox 16 Friends. He's not infallible. Like every other witness, he's going to be cross-examined. He's going to be tested. And ultimately, you and your viewers will be able to determine whether or not unbelievable, Gowdy said. And there's some tweets in this. Getting the hamster to work with me. Here we go. It says, Gowdy has at times praised Comey, as he did earlier this month. Too energetic. Let's get this back where it's supposed to be. Okay. Gowdy has at times praised Comey, as he did earlier this month, when Comey provided a closed-door briefing on the subject of Russia and the 2016 elections. Did more today to update us than I have ever had done in the 6 years I have been there, Gowdy. There is some video of Gowdy. Get this to scroll up. The name of the video is Gowdy Makes Bold Promise to Grill Comey Like. Continued, I have never heard federal law enforcement agent that degree of and detail an update on an inquiry. As you may recall, I was a federal prosecutor, so I have talked to lots of FBI agents beyond what any other administration official has ever done, whether it's Eric Holder, Loretta Lynch, or his predecessor, Robert Mueller. Gave us this level of detail and specificity backwards. At all investigating, there are limits to what it can do. To investigate, Gowdy said, Congress does have a role to in this investigation, but we don't investigate crime because we're not very good at it. He would not divulge what he expects to be revealed. Americans keep an open mind. Media reports that have claimed there were extensive connections between Russia and the Trump administration. One issue downplayed by the media, leaks of sensitive and large in the investigation. The leaks are, but folks in the media might recalibrate the these issues, Gowdy said. The leaks are both illegal, deleterious to our national security. Interested in got out. As for President Trump's claim that he was wiretapped while a candidate for president, Gowdy said that the truth will emerge in time. There will be an evidentiary paper trail, said Gowdy. This will either be corroborated or it article that I have. Hamster catches up here. It is off of the Common Sense Judges, and it says Hillary's Russian agents irrefutable proof. I accused Hillary Clinton of being a accusation, and subsequent article received moderate attention. However, there have been new developments, and it is time to repeat the charge with even more information. The Russians are ironic that teasing anyone who opposes them, being yours truly, courtesy of the Washington. The article I wrote alleging that Clinton was a spy gained moderate attention. However, there is more evidence the Russians during the campaign. There are multiple reports that Clinton people met with members of the Russian diplomatic corps during the campaign manner Trump people. The House Intelligence Committee is meeting on March the 20th to further accuse President Trump of being a Russian. CIA will be part of these hearings, which I find outrageous since they are the classified information designed to damage the Trump administration. This is quickly becoming a case of the kettle calling the pot black. It is now revealed that she engaged in the same activities by meeting with Russian officials during the campaign as they are accusing Trump's people of doing. Reinforced the fact that she has no loyalty to the United States, and this includes key members of the DNC as well. Insert here, it says Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, press secretary to Putin. Not only did Donald Trump's team meet with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak, but so too did Hillary Clinton's staff hold meetings with the Russian diplomat. Telegraph UK reported that Trump-Russia fake news being spread by mainstream media is the revelation that the campaign meeting with Russian officials don't have proper understanding, he said. We certainly would expect our contacts to be more frequent, more in-depth, because a significant we were losing potential by blaming everything on earth on each other. Public opinion, if you load with a huge burden of fake news, fake blaming on Russia, repeating numerous times that Russia is interfering back, that everything goes country is, we want to see this hysteria coming to its logical end. But the establishments and Council on Foreign Relations has already taken position that Mrs. Clinton's staff did not meet with the Russians at any time during. This is a key piece of evidence that further reveals the deep state plot designed to bring down the president. Interesting, the Ambassador Churkin's autopsy will not be released. Heart attack, then what's the big deal? Hiding. Given the fact that have now been shown to be guilty of the same thing that she's accusing Trump of doing, to release the autopsy results makes me wonder if this is another weightlifting accident. 7 Russians died. Certain people don't want revealed. The question would be to answer with a question, with another question. What precisely in America? Guilty of what the deep state and their political minions are alleging about Trump, but is part of a very disturbing pattern of behavior, and their foundation probably cozy with the Russians. A simple review of the facts would Clinton Foundation and major players in not loyal to America. They will commit treason of getting ahead. No, this is not Dave Hodges saying this. Initially, it's the Global Research Organization, which does not share many political opinions with Common Sense Show. Declares Clinton to be foreign spy. The source, Global Research. This is about as damning indictment of treason that exists. Global Research. It says during her 4 years as Secretary of the United States, 2009 to 2014, Hillary Clinton foreign policy. She had access to most confidential information, the tens of thousands from all of the major government departments and agencies, the Pentagon, Treasury, and the Office of the President. She had unfettered access to secret affecting U.S. policy in regions of the empire. Of inquiry against, number one, did she work with as yet unnamed foreign governments and intelligence services to strengthen their positions against the interests of the United States? Number two, information on the operations and policy positions of various key U.S. policymakers to competitors, adversaries, or allies, undermining the activities of the military, intelligence, and State Department officials. To enhance her personal power within the U.S. administration to push policy of wars over and against Department and Pentagon officials who favor traditional diplomacy and less violent confrontation. Number four, did she prepare a covert team using foreign or dual national operatives to lay the groundwork for her bid for the presidency and her ultimate goal of supreme military and political power? Covert war policies, which included violent overthrow of the elected Ukraine government, were carried out by her Undersecretary of State Victoria Nuland, neo-conservative from the previous Bush administration, and someone to Russia and to enhancing Israel's power in the Middle East. Clinton's highly dangerous and economically brainchild of military encircling China, the so-called pivot to Asia, required clandestine exchanges with elements in the Pentagon, State Department, executive oversight. Within the Washington political circuit, former Secretary of State Clinton's escalation of nuclear war policies toward Russia and China required secretive correspondence, which would not necessarily abide with policies and intelligence estimates of other U.S. government agencies' business interests. My main toward Hillary Clinton's treason was focused on one issue, namely selling uranium to Russia. I would argue that I would argue that Clinton's policies, which pushed into war mode against Russia, was done so Clinton would have a willing war ever come. Research, it says, leadership now faces the problem of how it will deal with a traitor, a party nominee for U.S. president, without undermining the U.S. quest for global. The lack of foreign spy for president who has been deeply and can be blackmailed. This may explain why the FBI, NSA, and CIA hesitate to press charges, hesitate to even investigate, despite the obvious nature of her offenses. And why Secretary Clinton's correspondence in the various reports are available. Hillary Clinton, an agent for Russia. I published that Clinton was traitor in 2015. This charge nearly 5 months ago. A member of the Obama administration and currently proven herself to be the Ethel Rosenberg of her generation. Called U.S. history as Ethel Rosenberg sold nuclear secrets to the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War, and as egregious as Ethel Rosenberg, Clinton sold uranium to the Russians while serving as Secretary of State. Ironically, the original source of this treasonous act was none other than the ultra-liberal fake news rag we call the New York Times. Undeniable that Hillary Clinton committed the treasonous act of selling as reported in the New York Times. Blood money, as reported, is being her run for the presidency. The New York Times, it says a uranium that points to a 35,000-acre ranch by John Christensen, Gillette, Wyoming. Uranium One has the mining rights, Mr. Christensen's property. This is proof of more BLM chicanery, multiple BLM ranches. The New York Times further asserts that members of the Canadian mining industry who have supported, financed, and sold off to the Russians, known as Uranium One, directly responsible for transferring uranium from BLM land to the Russians company. Again, according to the New York Times, the Russians, three separate transactions, acquired Uranium One, Clinton's, and the Canadian partners from 2009. A business deal also involved paying Bill Clinton $500,000 each on energy in Moscow. Who needs to look at 33,000 classified emails being transmitted on Clinton's private computer when kind of evidence? Fake news mainstream media accused Common Sense Show of being fake news when we are citing the New York Times, but wait, there's more. Are acting as Russian intelligence agents. Is a state-owned bank. The bank has confirmed that it hired the brother of John Podesta, the former head of Hillary's presidential campaign, Tony Podesta, hired hand for the bank with regard to lobbying the United States government. They totaled $170,000 for the rendering services. Illegal services? Yes. Podesta did not register as a foreign agent as required by law, Foreign Agency Registration Act, called FARA, when he represented the bank. This bank is directly connected to Russian government. Podesta doing? He was lobbying of sanctions that had targeted the Russian bank sector. If this treason or just another case of Clinton-sponsored corruption. Do you think these facts are going to be discussed in the upcoming March 20th witch hunt against Donald Trump? As I discovered that Cyberbank has close ties with the Russian intelligence community, which means that Tony Podesta to the Russian intelligence services. Sedition that key members of the Clinton team were Russian intelligence agents. A very limited resources with a very large collection of reporters. Therefore, and in the Washington, New York Times for not being able to uncover this story in its entirety. Area staff of one, more solvent than Social Security Fund. If a uncover this massive conspiracy to commit treason against the United States, how deep does it go? It goes as deep, very deep as the deep state. To go on the offensive, to dominate Twitter. Meanwhile, you can help Trump administration by making this type of information go viral. Is that information? And I don't see that there's a lot of information in there that we haven't already heard before. It's just kind of conglomerate article, puzzle pieces together rather than just grabbing them one. I mean, sure, she's filthy, but how do we get the government to do anything about her? That's the question. Article that we have here catches up. It's off of Liberty Headlines, and it says, fishermen sue to reverse Obama's last-minute ocean grab. From Liberty Headlines writes this, and she says, the legality of President Obama's marine the first of its kind, is in question. Commercial fishing groups filed a lawsuit which challenges designation of the area as national monument. Fishing is on the monument, represented by the Pacific Legal Foundation, say that the Antiquities Act president power to designate land as a national monument and argue the ocean isn't land. Declared the area in East Canyons and Seamounts National Marine Monument in 2016. Nearly 5,000 square miles of ocean canyons, 100 coast of New England, monument the size of Connecticut. This crucial marine area, which serves as important habitat for fish species, corals, whales, sea turtles, other species, will now be protected and preserved, serving as a natural laboratory for research and enhanced understanding of the impacts of climate change on Secretary of Commerce Pritzker said in a press release. Was first designated. Right whale population is of many marine biologists. 24 whales left in the population. There were only 3 whale births this year and there were 4 mortalities due to entanglements and ship strikes last year. But the Pacific Legal Foundation says the monument could hurt the marine life to help. Beyond its violation of the law, the monument also threatens to harm the environment by pushing fishermen's less sustainable fisheries and increasing conflicts between their gear and whales, said Attorney Jonathan Woods. At issue is whether it's legal to designate a marine zone as a monument under the Antiquity area designated meets the requirements to be the smallest area possible. The Pacific Legal Foundation argues the answer to both of these questions is no. The monument is located, nor is it federally owned or controlled, said Wood. Designation is also not confined to the smallest necessary area. On the contrary, its sprawling boundaries bear no relation to the underwater canyons and seamounts. The designation of the vast area of ocean monument was a blatant abuse of presidential power. Be detrimental to the fishing industry and other industrial development. The exact economic impact is unclear. When Sweden have seen a $125 million law in Massachusetts alone. The proposal was dropped in October. Paul LePage asked President Trump to intervene and reverse the monument designation. What his act doesn't give the president power to reverse the designation. Declare one. Bob Bishop, a Utah Republican and the chairman of the U.S. House Committee on Natural Resource, also urged President Trump to remove the marine monument, calling the prohibitions a clear example of federal. President Obama designated 29 areas as monuments under the Antiquities Act. George W. Bush designated 6 areas as monuments, and President Bill Clinton designated 19 area terms as president. Article. While we're waiting for the hamster, I'll say this about it. I don't think any of them need to be designating anything as national monuments. Voting, farming, give this land back to the people that it's supposed to be on instead of jailing them for rights. And let's get farming back to what it should be, feeding the nation. Poisoning everybody. Okay, this next one is Liberty Headlines. It says, left and ACLU supporting lawyer said to be top Sessions choice for civil rights. Liberty Headlines writes this. Liberals continue to push the narrative that Attorney General Jeff Sessions is too conservative for his position. A behind-the-scenes argument is brewing on the right about whether the rest of Sessions' Justice Department will be conservative enough. Among conservative legal eagles, pending choice to lead the department's most controversial subdepartment division. The widely reported frontrunner for the spot, California Republican leader Hermit Dillon, counts conservative superstars Laura Ingraham, reportedly Sosa, among the staunchest supporters. However, other conservative stalwarts argue that Dillon for the appointment. Dillon was an ally of the Ingram and DeSouza 3 decades ago when they all worked on the conservative Dartmouth Review and pilloried the liberal college administration. She also has been active in the Federalist Society, the national organization of conservative and libertarian lawyers, helped lead the Trump campaign's effort to rules in his favor at last year's Republican National Convention. On the other hand, in law school days, as a board member on the San Francisco chapter of the Liberal American Civil Liberties Union, and has spoken in favor of liberal pro-abortion laws and in favor of recognizing the American legal rights for enemy combatants held at Guantanamo Bay. She also donated to the campaign of California's left-wing U.S. Senator Kamala Harris for her earlier position of San Francisco District Attorney. And others, Paul Mirengoff of the well-known conservative blog Powerline has written 2 columns opposing Dillon's selection to head the Civil Rights Division. The Civil Rights Division must be headed by a staunch conservative. In the first one, it simply won't do for a former ACLU board member and Kamala Harris supporter, liberal streak, to head the division. In an answer to the first column and other criticisms, Dillon's National Committee member from California, Sean Steele, circulated a letter defending her conservative bona fides and belittling many of her critics as holdovers and characterizing the criticism as noting that Dillon is a Sheikh, IKH, I'm guessing I'm pronouncing that right. He wrote that in the California Central Valley, Sheikhs are among our greatest allies. They are quite conservative and Americans, none of which retorted excuses the indicating that ideologically she has played, or separately, not mentioning Dillon directly, some top conservative lawyers are circulating their own letter addressed to Sessions that stresses the importance of choosing a conservative to head the Civil Rights Division. The recent record of court citations for unethical behavior accuses the division in recent years of ideological rot and calls for a number of strategic shifts and internal reforms. The letter, which hasn't been sent to Sessions yet, urges support for voter identification requirements and other means of ensuring the voting process, while calling for race-neutral enforcement of laws. The latter issue refers to one of the biggest controversies in the early years of the Obama administration, one originally brought to the fore by the Obama Justice Department's decision to drop charges in what effectively was an already won case against 2 voters accused of intimidating voters outside a Philadelphia polling place. In that case, Justice Department employees reported that Obama team had openly stated it would not apply civil rights laws in defense of white people, black perpetrators, and it would not enforce voter integrity provisions in federal law. Such laws don't advance their goal of increasing turnout. Those are just a few examples of the numerous times that the Justice Department and its Civil Rights Division in each of the past 2 presidencies, from the political right, the George W. Bush team blasted by the left, and others. Mirengoff's Powerline colleague, John Hinderaker, weighed in over the weekend with his own column entitled Memo to Jeff Sessions, It's Time to Clean House. Hinderacker's conclusion explains the sentiment so widely held on the right on both sides of the divide over Harmeet Dillon almost entirely agree. No swamp in need of draining than the Department of Justice, horribly corrupted by 8 years of misrule. Sessions has his work cut out for him. Bureaucrats and lawyers at the DOJ will fight him every step of the way as he tries to reform the department. The press will fight him too. The efforts to restore professionalism to the Civil Rights Division, now a cesspool of bias and incompetence, but reporters will imply that every effort Sessions makes to reform it is racist. It is a daunting task, but he is the right man for the job. Conservatives need to be prepared aggressively as he begins to clean the Aegean stables of the Department of Justice. High on these issues, the Wall Street Journal last year accused the Obama administration the miscarriage of justice department, and conservatives of all stripes don't want Jeff Sessions' tenure to be stillborn. This article I have for you is off of BizPac Review. It says, Walter Cronkite Awards for Journalism announced, and the winners couldn't be more telling. Fake news. The 2017 Walter Cronkite Award for Excellence in Television Political Journalism has been awarded to some well-known names at CNN and Univision. Jake Tapper, Katie Tur, and George Ramos will be the recipients of achievement by National Journalist Honor. Media isn't biased. There's a tweet from the Hill that says Univision's Ramos, MSNBC's Tur, CNN's Tapper will win 2017 Walter Cronkite Award. At this serious, dangerous moment for our democracy, these Cronkite Awards honor journalists, stations, and networks stepping up to their civic responsibility to tell Americans the truth. Center at the University of Southern California's Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism said in an announcement on Monday, for advancing the conversation about what divides us as a country, according to jurors. Journalists has repeatedly attacked President Trump over his immigration claims and policies. Thrown out of a Trump press conference during the presidential campaign when he became unruly and spoke out of turn. The Univision news anchor, whose daughter worked on Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, recently claimed that illegal immigrants coming to the U.S. were a benefit to the country, that the Americans' future would be composed solely by minorities. Tur is receiving her Cronkite Award for providing unique insight into Trump voters and displaying grit and demonstrating the honor of her profession. And jurors actually touted Tapper's tenacious commitment to sorting fact from fiction, a quality essential to journalism, for his win. Tapper has been at the receiving end of many Trump's attacks on CNN for reporting unsubstantiated and biased news reports during the campaign and in the first weeks of the new administration. We're saying Trump was trying to discredit CNN by calling them fake news at a press conference. His 7-year-old son mocks him with fake news taunt whenever he bothers him. Out CNN was for its reliable sources, which won top national network news program. Brian Shelter's ability to offer positive solutions of what the media needs to do to gain and regain the public's trust. Jurors voting on the trophy. At a ceremony, the National Press Club in Washington on April the 28th, according to The Hill. Tory notes were tweeted. Countless Twitter users thought Cronkite himself would be insulted. And there's a bunch of tweets here if you want to pull it up to read those. But yeah, I have to agree. Cronkite would be absolutely disgusted. The next one here is off Natural News, and it says bioterrorism mysteriously killed in a bicycle accident. On Friday, February the 24th, University professor and bioterrorism expert Robert Mark Buehler was mysteriously killed while riding his bike in the 1600 block of Riverview Drive. A 67-year-old professor taught molecular microbiology and immunology at St. Louis University and was described obituary as one of the nation's foremost researchers. The obituary added he was a member of multiple national committees and governmental advisory groups, some that advise the intelligence community on biodefense. The professor's daughter described her father as a humble, that he was bad at math, but he got a PhD, and he had his own lab, and he advised the government, she explained. He was an amazingly important person and never wanted anyone else to know. According to police, Buehler was killed just before 6 p.m. when a man driving a Ford attempted to pass Buehler on the left. He swerved and was struck by an oncoming Audi. Police say that Buehler was pronounced dead at the scene in the accident, including an 8-year-old boy and a 44-year-old woman were taken to a hospital in stable condition. SLU's obituary explained that Buehler's job was to look for new ways to prevent and protect against viruses that could potentially be used as weapons of bioterrorism. Outside of his work at St. Louis University, Mr. Buehler volunteered with Habitat for Humanity, a nonprofit organization dedicated to building affordable houses in areas all over the world. Buehler also sponsored impoverished children from several different countries and to wounded warriors. In addition, Buehler was an active member of Our Lady of Lourdes Parish in University City, lived happily with his wife Jocelyn. After working for over 2 decades at St. Louis University, Buehler was just for his retirement in 2018. May find the death of the bioterrorism professor a bit too coincidental. That the Islamic State has made threats to use toxic agents to kill large numbers of civilians. Terrorist organizations were to launch an attack on the United States, it would make sense that they would eliminate those before actually carrying them out. Still, this is only a theory, and it should not take attention away from the terrible pain and sadness being felt by Buehler's family and friends in this time of hardship. The next article, Nuke. It says Julian Assange sends out tweets regarding Pence takeover. 14th, Julian Assange tweeted from his personal account regarding a so-called Pence takeover from sources within the intelligence community. His tweets have set the internet ablaze with speculation. Many theorize over his claims may be and whether these claims are reality or fake news. And Assange sends out some tweets. He says, the officials close to Pence stated privately this month that they are planning on a Pence takeover. Pence agrees. It should be noted that both the officials close to Pence and Hillary Clinton spoke of moving toward an impeachment, not other action. Privately this month, that she is quietly pushing for a Pence takeover. She stated that Pence is defeatable. I see officials close to Pence have supposedly stated that the plan to lead President Trump toward impeachment and have Pence resume control in the works. None other than Hillary Clinton privately said that she is pushing towards a Pence takeover because Pence is predictable and hence defeatable. However, as always with speculation, we must remember to think rationally and intelligently and not fall victim to fake news, anonymous sources from someone seemingly on our side. Anonymous sources can come from anywhere and strengthen anyone's narrative. The public will eat it. It backs up their line of thinking. Assange, with the Podesta emails and recently released Vault 7 exposing the CIA, has an impeccable record. That he would post such an extravagant claim with absolutely no evidence if he's broadcasting this information with no proof, it shows just how dire the situation may be. CNN tweet that says, Vice President Pence, Assange about Pence's takeover of the White House, and frankly offensive. Pence responded to the allegations, calling them absurd and frankly offensive. As of now, it is game of he said, she said. If the news of Pence's takeover is true, we're at least aware of it now and watch eagle-eyed for any indications of it coming to fruition. However, it may lead to a crazed witch hunt to burn a witch that doesn't exist. My take on it is that I think that somebody is trying to cause division within the ranks as possibly a smokescreen to cover up what? Is mine. The next one here, hold.com, yes. Europe's lessons teach us don't go green. Get the hamster to scroll it up here. If you listen to the media narrative on the climate change and clean energy, you'd think that the rest of the world has moved smartly and seamlessly toward the 21st century green energy, while the U.S. is highly polluting laggard that just won't get with the program to save the planet. The green energy revolution around the world has turned into the big green meltdown, with many nations sprinting away from renewable energy with the speed of a bolt. Here are a few of the latest news flashes from Europe and Asia. In Germany, the world leader in green energy, electricity prices have now reached a level triple those paid in the United States. Imagine the anger if middle-class Americans saw a tripling of their utility bills each month. To comply with renewable energy requirements, power stations are burning hundreds of millions of pounds of wood pellets imported from the U.S. Environmental experts confirm that burning wood is much worse for the environment than burning natural gas. Australia, another green energy leader, saw its electricity prices skyrocket this past winter. An analysis by the Institute for Energy Research, power costs surged unbelievably from $100 per megawatt hour to $10,000 per megawatt hour. This was because of heavy dependence, reliable, renewable energy program. The government had to reopen one of its shuttered natural gas plants to keep prices from further exploding. A decade ago, that it was all in on green energy, and the government launched a wind power program. Embarrassingly, politicians now have had to acknowledge the program has become so expensive and inefficient that the government will phase out the subsidies lavished on the industry. In cases, the economies and local factories have taken a big hit. Institute for Energy Research analysis of Australia found that its electric system that is heavily reliant on wind power, 40% comes from intermittent renewable sources, cannot cope without reliable power from traditional generation sources. Is that Australia is finding intensive are relocating to Asia countries that provide stable regulation and costs, lower taxes, cheaper wages. So very quietly, Europe and other nations aren't going so green anymore. And spent an estimated $750 billion on green energy handouts over the past decade, and it's brought them is doubling of power cost. This has given American steel, auto manufacturers, light manufacturers, agricultural businesses, and technology firms a big competitive edge in world markets. That European nations and Australia are desperate for the U.S. to move dim-witted green energy policies that they have adopted. That means for America. U.S. Chamber of Commerce estimated that if America were to adopt the same mandates for renewable energy, the total cost to American consumers would be more than $600 billion, and our industries would pay out at least $10 more. By the way, the U.S. already provides subsidies to wind and solar power, and according to the 2016 American Action Forum study, These subsidies are 5 times greater per unit of energy produced than subsidies given to nuclear power and 20 times more generous than those given to fossil fuels. Yet, despite all the money spent on them, they still account for less than 5% of American energy output. Eliminate all American energy subsidies and let the free market decide. Trump has made it known that adopting more of the policy quackery of Europe at a time when the U.S. has more recoverable shale oil and gas and more clean coal than any other nation on the planet is no way to make America great again. Away from the fantasy of green energy, and this is one of the rare instances when America may want to follow their lead. Final article I have in this episode, pop it up here. This is Hill.com, and it says, by police after refusing to leave the ICE office. Representative Lewis at Illinois was handcuffed by federal police Monday after refusing to leave Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office. Gutierrez, a staunch advocate of immigration reform, was at a meeting between ICE officials and immigration lawyers, activists, community leaders, and other elected officials, NBC Chicago reported. They were asking about specific cases of conduct of ICE and deportation, said Gutierrez, director of communications. Gutierrez refused to leave the office after the meeting and was briefly handcuffed. Has decided that he did not get the answers he was looking for from the ICE regional director, and he's going to be staying inside until he gets answers. Risking arrest, said Rivlin, according to NBC. Later, Rivlin said, no dialogue, no transparency, no consultation, and no accountability, just like every other aspect of how this White House does business. Ended government and to make the new strongman president look and to satisfy the cravings of his Coliseum audience, immigrants to sacrifice. Gail Montenegro told The Hill action after Gutierrez made demands of officials were unable to agree to and then refused to leave the premises. However, when the congressman sought actions that ICE officials couldn't provide, he and other attendees staged a sit-in and refused ERO office the meeting, Montenegro said. In a tweet shortly after his release, Gutierrez said he did not know if he was going to be formally arrested over the incident. I was arrested, cuffs were cut off, waiting for further word on if it will be said on Twitter. A tweet, it says 7 other people who also refused to leave, according to NBC. Montenegro asked Federal Protective Service, or the FPS, and the protesters, but later relented on that request. They were briefly placed in flex before ICE officials relayed that they were no longer wanted the individuals removed from the building, Montenegro said. She added the protesters had not been congressmen and other individuals were placed in the restraints for approximately 2 minutes before the flex cuffs were removed by FPS. FPS did not cite these individuals, she said. Gutierrez has been arrested for protesting before. In 2011, he was arrested outside the White House protesting deportations by the Obama administration. Here you have that. And I have at least one, maybe more, episodes to follow. Here, give it a thumbs up, share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. Hopefully, the audio is good enough in this that you can understand it today. In the Capitol is the way to go. We'll see. Subscribe if you haven't done that yet, and that way you'll stay informed. I'll see you in the next episode.